Well, after a few brief glimpses, Jane Pass has finally been revealed, and we are given a deeper look at Renata that takes the show to all new heights in its best episode yet. Hey guys, remember Big Little Lies, episode 3, Living the Dream, and I was definitely really looking forward to this episode. I've surprisingly loved this show. Again, I can't believe how great the show has really been. But again, just like the first episode, because of how great the first two episodes were, I was quite worried about this episode because there have been many miniseries I've watched that they start off very strong and then they get really shitty because they have to end and they're like, oh, we don't have an ending, so we'll just randomly end the show on whatever. And they don't really have a suitable end for the show. And I was worried that's what this show was going to do because, you know, we're on episode 3, there's 4 episodes left, but I have to say that this episode did the complete opposite. Instead of that, they gave us the best, by far the best episode yet. I love this episode. We got a lot more deeper character revelations. We finally got a look into Jane's past and characters that I really thought of one way. I really don't think of them that way anymore. And let's just get into this episode because I definitely really did love this one. This show clearly is a lot deeper with its characters than we think it is. And again, it's a lot different than I ever thought it was going to be. And I'm very happy to see that. But we start off the episode, we see Jane's looking into the ocean. Ziggy calls out to her, says that they can go home now since it's dinner time. Renata and Gordon are setting up decorations for the party, and Amabelle is distraught to learn that Chloe is not coming. You know, she's very surprised to hear that. She really thought that Chloe was going to come, but Renata explains the situation. Amabelle asks if everybody else is coming, and if Chloe doesn't come, you know, is everyone else going to come? So Renata says there are a few others who are going to the other thing. Amabella asks how many. Renata says she thinks 6, and she says everyone else in the whole class is coming. It's going to be an incredible party, and she tries to make her feel better by letting her know all the different activities and guests will be at her party. And Gordon comes down, and this is by far the biggest look we're given at Renata and Gordon's relationship, because Gordon has been quite stagnant as a character. He's been very much in the background, and this episode very much changes that. He comes down, tells her to get her swimsuit on, and meet him in 5 minutes in the pool. Renata lets Gordon know about the 6 kids that aren't coming. She says it was a mistake not to invite Ziggy, and Gordon reminds her that he tried to choke her, and she's afraid of him. What I really love about this episode is that it really does show that Renata does in fact have a conscience, and she definitely does have feelings. She's very much affected by what happens around her. Sure, she might have not invited, you know, she didn't invite Ziggy out of pure hatred for Madeline. She didn't invite Ziggy because she genuinely felt her daughter was not comfortable around him. But by doing that, it's created a lot bigger of a problem that she really did not think of. And I do like the way this episode dives a lot deeper into that because, you know, a couple episodes ago, I would have said I absolutely hate Renata. I think she's a bitch. I think that she definitely is a villain of the show. But this episode really shows, you know what, she really hasn't done anything that bad. I mean, she sided with her daughter because her daughter said that Ziggy hit her. She's not gonna, you know, not believe her daughter, obviously. She has genuine reasons to be angry at Madeline, and she's very dedicated to her job, and she has a husband who constantly wants sexual advance from her, so really, you can really understand why she is the way she is in this episode. I think they did a very good job with getting into it. Not a lot of shows do that with a character like Renata, but this show really did that quite well, and I really love the way that this episode showcased that. I was very happy to see them go in that direction with her. So Gordon reminds her that he tried to choke her. She's afraid of him, so could they possibly invite him? And she says with Chloe not coming, he said it's going to be a spectacular party. Amabelle is going to have the time of her life, and she says she's going to kill her. Like, she genuinely means she's going to kill Madeline. So Perry then asks Celeste if they're going to some kid's birthday party, and Perry as well, as bad and, you know, intimidating and kind of threatening as Perry can really be, he's really creepy as well. You really can understand where Perry's coming from this episode. He is very, you know, he really is quite upset with Celeste because nothing that she's doing, she's really run by him. And he asks if he's not invited, you know, because he finds her at Disney on Ice. And basically, he asks if he's not invited. She says he doesn't want to go to that. And he asks if she doesn't think he wants to spend time with his family after being gone a week. And he asks her why they didn't discuss this. She says it just wasn't like that. Madeline got the tickets and there were only so many. He says they couldn't afford one. He says 1 second they're going to some birthday party he didn't know about. And the next she decides to take them to a show, all without consulting him. So naturally, he does feel a bit hurt about it, which you can understand. I mean, he wants to have a role in his life. You know, he wants to have a role in her life. He wants to be that supportive husband. He wants to be able to go to things with the kids, and he doesn't want to be, you know, he doesn't want to be, you know, completely unnotified about this stuff. He wants to be notified when this stuff is going on, which you can understand. So basically, you can see where he's coming from here, and you can understand why he gets the way he does. And she says that sometimes she has to make decisions when he's 10,000 miles away. He asks if she doesn't think it'd be nice for Josh and Max to spend time with their father, who's been gone a week, that he wants to be away all the time. He grabs her by the throat and says to look at him, says he's hurting her, and he asks if they can talk about how much she hurts him, deliberately planning these things to avoid having to be with him. And she says to take his hands off her. He says she could have bought another ticket, and she says she will leave him if he touches her like that again. And I mean, we genuinely mean it. Like, I think Celeste genuinely would leave Perry if she had the chance to. Like, if she really wanted to, she would leave him. But clearly she doesn't want to. He clearly does love her. Like, Perry definitely does have love for her. But it's a bit obsessive. You definitely see in this episode. It's definitely a damaged love. So Chloe tells Madeline that she doesn't want to do a family tree, but Madeline says that she has to since that is what she was assigned. Abby tells her if she doesn't excel in first grade, she won't get into private school, and then she can forget about Stanford, and then what's the point? So Renata calls the house, and we get this very intense phone call between Renata and Madeline where she tells Madeline she had to do a little bit of a long night of the soul. She thinks she was right about her excluding Ziggy from the party, and she'd like to invite him and Chloe after all. And Amabella's so fond of her and asks her if she happened to have Jane's number since she really wanted to. But Madeline says, you know, while it was sweet of her, it's kind of too late. They already have plans to go to Disney on Ice. And, you know, she asks if they can swing by after. Renata says the party, that's not going to work because the party's going to end at 3 o'clock. So Madeline says they won't be back by then. Renata says there has to be something they can do. Madeline says she wishes that there were, and Renata says what if Chloe and the others came to the party with a big smile on their faces, and after she arranges a great sleepover weekend trip to Disneyland, all expense paid, VIP passes, backstage passes to Frozen, and all this great stuff. But Madeline says that's not going to work. Renata says she'll even get Snow White to sit on Ed's face. Chloe admits she'd rather go to the party than the show, and Renata says she's done this town as is her fucking puppet show. And again, you understand the hate she really does have for Madeline. I mean, Madeline really is kind of, she's caused a lot of problems here that she didn't need to cause, but Madeline thanks her for calling. Renata then throws her phone into the pool, and you really can understand why Renata feels this way. You know, it's not something, at first I laughed at her, but then I really did understand why she really felt this way, and I liked the way the episode really got into that. So the next day, Madeline, Celeste, and Jane go onto a bus to Disney on Ice. Meanwhile, at the party, things are kicking off. Renata and Bonnie are dancing suggestively. Abby is outside, goes to Ed, asks what he's doing, and he says he's working on a website for a new drone company, and the technology is incredible. She asks if those things are legal now. He says not yet, but probably over time they will be. And I gotta say, Abigail is one of the best written teenage characters in recent memory. I mean, most times in these cable type shows, these teenage characters are usually very annoying, they're usually way too cute, and this is the complete opposite. Abby's a character who's very independent, and sure, maybe she can be a bit stubborn, but for the most part, she can definitely understand where she's coming from and why she is feeling this way. Like, the hate she doesn't hate her mother, you know, this isn't someone who's demanding her mother all these things, but she definitely does have a rough past, you can understand that. She asks what happened between him and Nathan, he explains what happened, blaming Nathan and he basically blames Nathan for the whole thing, which kind of was justified, kind of not. I mean, Ed didn't really help, but yeah, Nathan was definitely the one to instigate it, and he says he found it to be ridiculous, and she asks what part the idea that Madeline be nice to Bonnie or the idea that her father should care, and Ed says they know where she stands. Abby asks what's wrong with her mom. Ed says nothing. Abby asks if she doesn't seem a bit agitated to him lately. He says agitated is her preferred state, and she says it's not hers, and obviously, things are not really great between Abby and Madeline right now. So, at the birthday party, the kids are chanting for cake. Amabella makes a wish, and after the party, Renata hands everyone gift bags, all containing characters from Frozen, which obviously she's trying to do as a way to tell them, you know, it was good you stay at this party, and she clearly did that on purpose. But after Disney on Ice, they all come home. Madeline says she's exhausted. Jane thanks her, and Ziggy asks if she has Harry the Hippo. Jane freaks out that he's gonna get blamed again. She just can't fathom that idea because constantly Ziggy keeps getting blamed, and she really doesn't want to have to be that problem child. And Abby's in school, and her counselor comes up to her, asks how things are. She asks if she can talk to her for a second, and Abby asks what she did, and the teacher says nothing, tells her to just come with her. So Madeline goes to the theater, goes up to Joseph, and tells him that she could bring up the money. She knows a few people who could help her. They could work for free for a while just to make a point, and that would make a very big point. But Joseph basically tells her that this is a very dangerous situation, that if she does this, this could really put them in bad terms with the town. Not just with the mayor, but it could get the whole town against them. And while I have been supporting Madeline, after a while, yeah, it might be the right thing to change the play, but Madeline is so adamant about doing Avenue Q, she doesn't see another choice. She doesn't see any other possible option. It's Avenue Q or nothing for her, and I get it that she wants this play to go on because she does, she doesn't care about social acceptance. She wants to do what she can to make sure that, she wants to put on the play that she can. She doesn't really care if it's, racist or not, or what's really going on, that this is a place she feels needs to be put on. There's something about it that she really does care about, and you definitely do side with her for that. But I definitely do get what Joseph is saying, that after a while, yeah, she does kind of need to step down a bit and really realize that this isn't going to go well for her. And she basically tells him that his work is too good, and she gets a call from Abby. She goes to meeting with her counselor, and she gets probably some of the worst news she's gotten in a long time. Basically, she, the counselor tells Madeline that Abby's GPA was 3.9 coming into the year, so she knows it's early, that they don't have to panic, but to see such a precipitous drop in performance makes her think there's something else going on, which we know that there is. And Madeline asks if it's about a boy. The counselor says it seems that Abby is under a bit of stress about being perfect, and Abby says there are a lot of high-powered women who work there, and some run banks and others run Google or Yahoo, and sometimes she feels like she's grooming her to get to a place that she couldn't, and she thinks would just be best if she lives with Nathan for a while, since she feels like she can't be herself at home. And Madeline's look in her face. Reese Witherspoon, once again, did such an incredible job in this scene. She's done everything she can to fashion Abby to be the best daughter she can possibly be. Even though she knows she can't always provide for Abby, she can't always be there for her, she's done all she can to try to make this a good environment for Abby and try to make her feel like she's at home. So to hear that Abby needs to keep distance from her mother, it's obviously she's distraught about it. I mean, it's destroys her, really. I mean, we already know Madeline's realizing that she can't, completely control her daughter. Now we add to the fact that Abby's not even going to be living with her, and obviously, Madeline's quite upset about that, and Madeline, and basically, she's really upset about the way that's going, so I was definitely, it was definitely surprising to see, but Abby says she doesn't even think she was totally aware of how much she felt like that till her and Mrs. Brewster started talking. She assures her she just needs a change, and that it really is nothing about her. She just feels that she can't be with Madeline. She's too high-strung, she always is worried, and she just needs a change, and she feels more at home with Bonnie and Nathan. It's some of the most shocking news that Madeline's gotten in her life, and it really does destroy her. And again, you really do side with Madeline throughout all this. This is someone who has really wanted to provide for her daughter her whole life. She's done what she can to make this a good life for her, but now her daughter is saying she doesn't want to live with her, and it obviously does put Madeline in a very, very uncompromised position, and I really did feel bad for her throughout this episode. So Ed tells Madeline that it's his fault, he should have never gotten in with Nathan, and Madeline says it's her, she pushed Abby too hard. He goes to her, tells her that she's not losing her, they're close, maybe too close, which is why she feels that way, and Madeline says she wouldn't leave if she knew she had cancer. She tells him this is rough, he says he knows, but her only crime is that she was too good of a parent. That's all it was. She was just too good of a parent, she was too involved, and she has raised a strong-minded, autonomous young woman who can think for herself and is equipped to making some pretty big life decisions, which a lot of teenagers don't really know how to do, but that's something that Abby did really well. She did something completely for herself, but also for the benefits of Madeline, because Madeline won't, that's one less thing for her to worry about. And he says she's an extraordinary person, just like her mom. And again, I really do love the way that Ed tries to compliment her and try to calm her down and things like that. But Celeste is in the shower. Perry sees her, wraps the necklace around her neck, so he says he's going to get better. He kisses her and then goes down on her, which again, we know is a recurring theme. These two always have sex after they fight. So Renata heads to work. She's on the phone with one of her colleagues, Adam. She goes to Gordon and tells him that she thinks Amabella should go to therapy. And Gordon says that she's 6, and she says she's also gifted, which makes her intuitively advanced. chance and emotionally more vulnerable. And she says that she knows that she enjoyed her party, but he has to admit her excitement seemed tempered, and that's because Chloe and a few of her other favorite friends weren't there. And he asks if that's really worth seeking medical help. She says it's not medical, tells him not to be so old-fashioned, and she says Amabella internalizes and a social slight could cause more psychological harm than a choking could. And she says that she doesn't need to know that she's seeing a child psychologist. Some of the best now dress up as clowns. They could sell as another birthday surprise, which the whole thing is kind of absurd, really, when you think about it. You know, really, she doesn't really know what she's talking about, and she says she spends all day long never letting her guard down. Just let her be a scared mom for once. It's their daughter after all. He tells her one of the things that makes her so successful that she's able to see every hiccup. It's one of her many gifts, but one of the pitfalls she has is that she tends to overthink everything, and that's something we've definitely seen with Renata with pretty much everything she's done. And this little line gets us to look at Renata in a whole new way. You know, the whole idea with her getting lawyers, that wasn't because she was trying to intimidate Madeline. It's because she genuinely thought that's what she should do, that they need lawyers, and this was a genuine, law situation. Like what happened with what happened between Ziggy and Chloe, that was, definitely something that needed to be handled in terms of, law enforcement, and which is ridiculous to think about, but that's kind of the conclusion that Renata frequently jumps to. And she asks him if she's become tragically unfun. She says she's one of those people she swore she would never turn herself into. He tells her to stop it, and she says they went skydiving on their third date, and that was the first time she really let herself free fall. And she asks when they became past their spontaneous prime. He asks if she wants that they should just fuck on the desk right now. She says to not make fun of her, and she obviously is not going to do that, but then he agrees to go into the bathroom. So Gordon's always someone who craves sex. We definitely see it throughout this episode. It's kind of fun to watch, at the same time kind of creepy, but compared to what's going on with Celeste and Perry, it's not nearly as weird as what's going on with them. But then we go, it's arguably the best scene of this episode between Celeste and Perry. They're in marriage counseling, and this scene was so incredibly well done, because as we know, in the last episode, Madeline asked them if they have marriage counseling. Celeste obviously said no, but as we could tell, yes, obviously these two are in marriage counseling. I mean, they have a very broken relationship right now. They're really not in a good position, and obviously they'd be in counseling. So the woman asks them what brings them here today, says they're free to talk about whatever they want, such as a lack of passion. Celeste says that's definitely not their problem unless they're being too much of it. She says they love each other. She thinks maybe things just get a bit too volatile, and she tries to downplay the situation. She tries to make it seem like they're not physical and that everything's fine between them, and that's just a bit of emotional yelling. But Perry actually confesses that actually he comes clean and says that that's not true. After they fight, they very often make love. He doesn't even know if he could call it that. There seems to be a lot of anger mixed up in it, and there's a line between passion and rage, and sometimes maybe they cross that, and the woman asks where this rage comes from. He says he doesn't even know how to answer that question. She says to try, and he says he thinks he's afraid of losing her so she can have any man she wants, and if she's not happy with him, there would be a line of 1,000 men waiting, and lately it doesn't always seem that she's happy, and that terrifies him from the very beginning when they first met. He always worries she would go through him and outgrow him, and that's what he's really worried about. The reason he is so clean, the reason why he is so abusive, is because he is terrified that she is going to leave him, and that every single thing that he does is one step closer to her walking out that door. So he has this constant fear that she's going to leave him. And again, it's not justifying what he's doing. That's not at all what they're trying to do. They're not trying to say, oh, rape is good, this is why you should rape people. That's not what the show is trying to do. What it is trying to do is it's trying to shed some lights on why someone would, abuse someone. That's what it really is trying to shed some light on. This is why Perry does abuse Celeste. Is it right? Obviously no. But this is why he does it, and you can really tell the pain that Celeste goes through here. Nicole Kim did an incredible job in the scene, with it first showing sincerity, but then showing fear, and then finally showing remorse for Perry. It's this recurring cycle that they clearly do go through a lot, and he tells this a secret that, they never really tell, and he says, he lashes out, and this is clearly something they go through a lot, and it really does get us to look at Celeste and Perry's relationship, again, in a whole new way, very similar to how we look at Renata and Gordon in a whole new way, and I think they did another really great job with that in this episode, taking very familiar cliches that could have gone in a much predictable direction, but they take it into a more nuanced and realistic direction. I really do love the way the show is doing that. So Principal Nepal then welcomes everyone to a PTA meeting. He gives them the details of the upcoming Fall Gala fundraiser in which the murder will take place, and which, we know that's when that's going to happen. So they decided to come up with another costume gala titled Elvis and Audrey Night. Madeline's a bit pissed that they wanted to be Audrey Hepburn out of everyone. Nathan sees her and asks if he can steal her for a second and tells her the whole Abby thing was not his doing. He's as surprised as she is, and he asks if she's alright with this, and she says at this point she has to be. She's a very well-developed sense of self-awareness, so if she thinks it's what's best there, then there's nothing they can do about it. And he says that's very mature of her to say. He says he'll take good care of her, and he says there's something that's a bit off subject, and he asks if she'll mind discreetly checking Ed right now, asks if she sees him the way he's staring at her, says he thinks he wants to fight him, and Madeline says to not be ridiculous since Ed doesn't fight. But as we know, Ed doesn't fight because he's never really had anyone to take down. So definitely there's a lot of tension brewing between these two, and I like that there's just as much tension between them as there is between, say, Madeline and Renata, and that's something else that very much does compel me, is that the men are pretty much just as crazy as the women. I really do love the way this episode got into that. So Bonnie tells Madeline she knows that she's Abby's mother, and she actually promises she'll never try to encroach. She'll never try to get involved. She'll never try to be that second mother. Even if Madeline, even if Abby wants her to, she'll never do that unless, Madeline gives her that consent, which I like seeing that, definitely. I like Bonnie to be a little bit more developed. She's the one character that's not really that developed right now, but I definitely think they're going to develop her more. Given what they've done with Renata and Gordon, they're definitely going to develop her more as the season goes on. But Ziggy's at T-ball practice. Ask Jane if he has to do this. She says they talked about this, that she needs him to try it once, and if he doesn't like it, she'll never make him do it again. He says he just wants to go play in the playground. She says he might actually like it. He agrees to try it. Madeline then calls her and tells Jane that they missed her at the meeting. Jane apologizes, says that she's at T-ball with Ziggy, just trying to get him more involved. Madeline says to savor the moment because eventually they do grow up, and Jane asks if she's okay. Madeline tells her about Abby's choice to live with Nathan, and Jane says she's really sorry. Jane says she'll call her back later since Ziggy's about to go up to bat. He then goes up to bat, makes a home run. It's a very satisfying moment for Jane. Finally, she gets to celebrate something about her son in a positive way. She finally does have something positive to say about her son regarding school, and I was very happy to see that. So Madeline's in helping Abby pack for her move. Abby says that she was thinking now that she's gone more, then they can have more time together. Chloe asks her if she's ever coming back. Abby says she will all the time. She jokes about her getting to have a room when she graduates, and basically, Jane then tells Ziggy that they should go get pizza, and he says he's alright. She asks him what he's talking about. He just hit a kid on a home run, his first try, and he's got to be the first kid ever to do that, and he says they have to do his family tree. They need to focus on that since it's due tomorrow. So she quickly realized that he's right, and then we get to the horrible truth of what Jane really has had to go through. So they go back to Madeline, who congratulates Ziggy on his home run. Jane shows him the photo she's organized, and remember how I said the marriage counselor scene was the best scene in this episode? This is arguably even better than that. This is on the same line as that, either scene is the best scene of the episode, but this scene in general was so incredibly well done. Shailene Woodley did such a great job in this scene, because at first she's trying to avoid the questions. He keeps asking, what's his name, but Jane just won't give him an answer. She doesn't want Ziggy to know the truth of what really went on, and eventually, once Ziggy does go to his room, she finally lets Madeline in on the truth. And we find out, finally, after seeing so many brief glimpses of Jane having these out-of-body experiences, we finally get to know what Jane's gone through, because she says that he told him that his name was Saxon Banks, like Mr. Banks from Mary Poppins, but she googled him afterwards, and they met in a bar, and he was funny and sexy, and they both were pleasantly drunk, and they got in a hotel room with an ocean view, and it was beautiful, and then he changed. He became extremely aggressive. It was like he was operating some piece of machinery, and she tried to resist, but he was way bigger than she was, and she eventually just stopped resisting because she was terrified that he was going to kill her if she kept going. So he finished, she got up, said goodbye, and that was it. She was even polite about it. So I like that this was a lot different than we thought. This wasn't something where he forcibly raped her. This was simply a regular date that was going well. He turned out to be a lot more aggressive. He wanted sex. She clearly did not want it. And she says she's grateful to have Ziggy. Madeline asks if she's talked to anyone about this, like a therapist or a counselor. She says that she's the first person she's ever told. Says that there was a point when she thought that she had moved on and had worked through it and whatnot, but she knows that she'll never really be over. And that's why she constantly has these visions. And now, all of these scenes of Jane having that gun, seeing these visions, now it really does all make sense. She's terrified this man is going to come back after her, and it gives Jane this whole new, just this whole new story and this whole new, layer to her story that we didn't see before, and it makes me care about her even more than I did, a couple episodes ago. So Madeline then gets into her car, she cries, and just knowing that there's really nothing she can do and realizing the struggle that her best friend had to endure. So Renata goes home, sits on the steps, tells Gordon about the theme for the school party. She asks him where Amabella is. He says that she's in her room and says that she's admiring how beautiful the house is, as if he remembers that after the remodel, they just stood around looking how perfect everything was. And no matter what they do, they can't make a perfect world. She's realized this, and she says that it felt really nice to be desired today. She thanks him. He says he always desires her. It just annoyed her, and she says that he wants to have sex all the time, and today he desired her, and he kisses her, and Jane's at home. She suddenly hears someone banging at her door, goes to take out a gun, but we realize this is just a fear that Jane has that Banks is going to eventually find her, which such a well-done, visceral scene, and a very intimate scene as well, just getting into the mind of Jane, that she's terrified that everything, that any little knock or any sort of glimpse or anything is going to be Banks returning, and she's just terrified that's going to happen because he is still alive, and it makes me even more worried that he's eventually the one that gets killed, because I really don't want Jane to be the one to kill him, but I very much fear that's what's going to happen. Perry then goes to Celeste, asks her what she's thinking. She says she's trying to decide if she's happy or sad. He says people usually know. She says she's sad because her husband doubts her love for him, and happy because for the first time in a long time, she's very hopeful about it, and he says he just wants her to hold her and look into her eyes and be in love with her, and she agrees to dance with him, and it's a really sweet scene. Madeline comes down, goes to Abby's now empty room. Jane then takes out her gun and hides under the pillow, and that is the way this episode ends. Really incredible stuff overall, but let's just get this episode and where we're going to go for the rest of the show. So, holy shit, I mean, what an incredible episode. So many big revelations happen within this episode. I mean, where do I really start? Really, I mean, this was a huge episode for almost every character involved. Besides Bonnie, every single character had some sort of big revelation and some sort of big thing that they had to face. Madeline, whether it was Madeline having to deal with the loss of her daughter leaving her and, venturing out with, living with someone else, someone particularly that Madeline has a lot of animosity for, or Celeste having to deal with counseling with Perry, why he really feels this way about her, realizing why he really does, manhandle her the way he does, or Renata, her realization that she is very much obsessed and that she is kind of becoming very uncool and that she just isn't really fun anymore and that's why she doesn't have many friends and things like that, or Jane's backstory. I mean, this episode really just had it all, but there's really a lot to get into here. First of all, let's talk about what's going on with Jane, because Jane now has this fear that Banks is going to return. It gives us, again, a whole new level to Jane's storyline. Now we understand why Jane is so freaked out. Now we understand why Jane is so worried about everything that's going on, and it definitely makes sense now why we're going that direction. So, again, I'm very worried that Banks is going to be the one that Jane kills, because I don't want that to have to be the way that Jane has to kill him. I want it to be, not from a fundraiser. I'm hoping that's not what happens. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but definitely makes me think that that's a possibility. However, just as much a possibility could be between Celeste and Perry, because again, Perry has that fear that Celeste is going to leave him. Now, who's to say he's going to stop abusing her? He's not going to. I mean, he said it before that he does it because he has outbursts and he has this inner rage and that he just can't control it. And yeah, that's not a good excuse. I'm not condoning what he's doing, but that doesn't mean that he's going to stop. That doesn't say, oh, I'm definitely going to stop at some point. He's going to keep going, and eventually it's going to get to a point where she is going to leave him. And I think it's not just going to be she leaves him. I think she's going to kill him. So it's either going to be Perry, Jane's husband, or it could possibly be Nathan, because we know that Ed definitely is ready to get into a fight with Nathan at any point, even though Madeline says that he's resisting. Definitely those two are going to fight at some point, and I can't wait to see the way that that's going to go down, because that's going to be very interesting as well. As far as what's going on with Madeline in the play, she really does need to move on. I mean, yes, I understand that Avenue Q is something she very much cares about, but after a while, I mean, it's only going to be a matter of time before this play, really becomes very controversial, and she could be preventing a lot of things for her theater community, and if she really does want to do that, I'd say just switch to another play. But Madeline, again, she's so adamant about this one play going on, she doesn't think of any other possibility, so I don't really know what's going to happen there. That's going to be very interesting. And then as far as the war brewing between Renata and Madeline, it's just starting. I think we're definitely going to get a lot more going on between those two. But now at this time, we really do side with both of them. I like how neutral this show is, where it doesn't try to pick a side. It doesn't view Renata as a villain. You could view her as a villain, but you could view Madeline as a villain just as much. And they do that in an incredible way in the show. And I really do love the way the show gets to that. I think the show is doing an incredible job with taking characters that you think you know how they're going to be and making them completely different from who they actually are, because this is the real life version of them. This is who these characters are behind the mask, or pulling back the curtain, so to speak. That's exactly what they're doing with this show. I think they're doing an incredible job with it. This, without a doubt, was the best episode of the show so far. I love pretty much everything about this episode. I love where the show is going. And as far as the interviews, there really were not many of them. And I was very happy the way the show did cut back on the interviews. I don't think we need them. I don't think they're really necessary. There were a couple in here that were pretty funny. Like, I like the little add-ons of them being horrified by Bonnie's dancing, or them saying that, Madeline is, still the one to blame for all this. Just little things like that were actually very funny. I definitely did enjoy them. Even though they weren't exactly relevant in the episode, we're not really going a ton of places with the case. So again, I don't really know why they still really need to be in there. They just don't really feel that necessary to me. But other than that, guys, I'm absolutely loving the show. I love where the show is going. It's better than I ever hoped would be. And I'm definitely going to give Big Little Lies, Episode 3, Living the Dream, a 4.75 out of 5, or an A. So far, guys, maybe this episode, Big Little Lies, and most of you guys saw this episode overall, left your thoughts, and I absolutely love this episode. I love where the show is going, and at this point, I'm really not worried. I think the show is going to continue to have that great medium of, really fun comedy, but also really great character moments. I think it's going to have those two things go hand in hand very well with the show, and I think it's going to continue to be that way. At least that's my hope. I hope it continues to be that way. But overall, guys, let me know what you guys saw this episode. Loved your thoughts in it. And we'll see you guys in the next video, which will be for the series premiere of Feud, Betty and Joan, which I am so hyped for. I've been waiting so long for that show. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.